Hey, so I get a few emails from overseas, from people from South Africa, England, France, Ireland. That's all so far. But in Cambodia recently, and I'd only get like one or two every few months about people who would hear about this and be interested because buying in their locations can be so cost prohibitive. It's very expensive in other places. Since the book Investing in Rental Properties for Beginners, it hit the international bestsellers list. It was on 8 different bestsellers lists, and I have noticed about every week now I get an inquiry from people overseas. It's been Ireland, it's been Cambodia, 2 now in the UK, and I just got a recent one. So I want to talk about doing this type of investing overseas, if you're from overseas, here in the States, and doing the investing overseas in those countries you're from. Like, does the same thing translate? And I got a story about that because I was in England in 2011. It was January 2011. I went over there and I was like all buzzing over this new thing. And I remember telling a British girl, hey, I found properties here you can do that too. And she was like, I asked my friend about it, and she said those properties aren't worth it and are a complete headache. Isn't that funny how familiar that sounds? That's the exact same thing they said over here too. But my 6,000 Facebook group proves it wrong, that there is some discernment you can take as a savvy investor and capitalize on it. So I can't go into every country because that's not my focus, but I wanted to say this can translate to other countries. It depends on the country, it depends on what places you go to. In some places, the idea of a mortgage is not known. Like, I think in Brazil, if you want to buy a house, you just have to pay cash for it. So it's a completely different mentality. Also, over like in Brazil, you have credit cards, but they don't have bankruptcy laws. So if like you can't pay, it just stays with you forever, and then it goes to your kids. It's horrible. They need bankruptcy laws to help them out. But in the UK, though, I was looking it up, just like I did 2011. Imagine if that girl would have listened to me instead of her friend who didn't know anything, where she'd be at, right? So I did a look over. So this can translate in certain areas. I think it can translate in France. I think it can translate in the UK, possibly even Spain, but there are some caveats. First, you need to understand your demographic, right? So there are places that are sort of working class, lower income. Of course, in Britain, I found like 20 places when I just randomly looked. I looked at Zoopla to find the locations. I just did a search for everything under £42,000, which is the equivalent of like $50,000, $55,000 here in the States. And things came up all over the map. Some were in need of a little bit of work, some in need of a lot, some in need of none. So yeah, you can do it, but you really need to understand what that demographic is. You got to be comfortable with class navigation. People who tend to be attracted to what I talk about either grew up in it or are comfortable going to a different class, but with understanding and compassion. And that energy is what facilitates them being having a good outcome. They approach it with just the right heart, the right mind, profitability, but also being mindful. So as long as you're okay going with the class navigation, you're fine. I know in some places like France, you have a demographic, not just class, but religious and ethnicity as well. So you just have to be someone who's comfortable going into, the arrondissement where everyone is, say, Muslim and very impoverished, and it's a completely different culture. So would I say you can do it? Absolutely. It might be best for someone who comes out of it maybe and can go back into those type of areas, but they got out of it, so they're just a little bit better off in understanding what that entails, right? So let's just keep this on the UK. Did a brief search, tons of houses. You just have to be mindful of a few things. The rents are not that high for the cost of the properties, I found, so you have to be discerning. If you buy it and you don't have to put thousands of dollars into it up front because it's really well maintained, then yes, the ones that need a lot of bit of work, I was just seeing rents were in the $500-600 a month range in these areas, which that can work if you get it low enough and it doesn't need heavy capital expenditures up front, but you have to just be really discerning about that. 2, are you okay with the demographic? As I mentioned, can you class navigate really well? Because if you go over there and you're the one with money and they're the ones with not, and you treat people like that, they're going to let you know about it. Like, you don't everyone has power, right? And if you don't approach someone with the right energy, they'll flex theirs. And even if like you do this or that and you kick them out, like you still had to go through that stress. So make sure you can come with the right energy. And I always say, I don't care if you do it there or here, be mindful that affordable housing is not easy to come by, and you need to be mindful as an investor what your part or role in it is in it. Always trying to flip is not the best thing for people in this day and age. Prices across the world, the wages around the world are not really going up, and housing expenses and inflation is. So just, I would say, be a conscientious investor and understand that, and go in there going, I will make affordable housing. I'm not trying to flip and push you out, because you are a person too. You have kids you'd like to see each night and not be in traffic or not be able to work, and long-term affordable housing. So yes, you can. I looked at Zoopla in the UK to look for a lot of different places. So if I was over there, I'd buy a lot of these. Of course, you can only buy so much, but yeah, I was like, I'd pick up a lot of these. So 2, I use Right to Move UK. Right Move UK, which is really good to find out what the rents were, so I could see comparables in the neighborhood to see if it's actually worth it. So slim margins, but yes, there's some hopes if you're discerning and you have the time to go through all of it. As of course, as I tell my clients locally here, don't just buy a cheap property. Make sure that the location, the house, the cash flow all goes into a certain plan, and that you're not just buying a cheap home randomly, that it works for where you're located, how easy it is to get there. So those same principles of building a business that makes sense for what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go still hold. But yes, you can do it over there. So the other thing about, I've had a lot of investors from overseas say, hey, can you help me do it here? And in general, I have not as of yet. If you're like an American couple who wants to invest over here, sure. I have not as yet done it with people who are from overseas and want to. I'm a little divided, but I guess I would just say I could help you if you had the right heart, but all these things you need to be mindful of. If you're going to do this from overseas, unlike my American clients and even myself, I haven't visited some of my properties in like 3-4 years, and I don't have to, because I have good management in place. I take pictures. I know the state of it. I know how they're paying each year on time. Like, I just don't need that for the way that I set my properties up. If you're from overseas, you are more of a target for a property manager to not be as conscientious about making sure you get paid, to transparency, because they know you're far away and you can't get over there. So I would say if you're going to do it from over there and here, you need to have a budget for flying out here every year to look at your investment. Just get your mind right, and that can be expensive. For some of you guys, that's $1,500 to $2,500 for that trip. But hey, you get to deduct it when you come look at your property and make sure everything's going. Meet with the property manager, do an inspection of the property. But you need to be willing to do that once a year. Have a budget for it. So hopefully put it in some place you like to visit, or make it like a big visit. I know a lot of people overseas have 2 months vacation, so just make the most of it and plan for it. That would be the main thing. Just understand you're more prone to it. So if they know you're going to be visiting and doing an inspection every year, it's a completely different ball game in which them doing to you. What other notes did I put? Also, I would say the same that you do here. Be mindful that it is affordable housing. A lot of people over here, if you approach it with the wrong energy, they'll know you're overseas and that you can't easily get there. And so if you don't approach people right, they will show you're not approaching people right by their efforts against, maybe they're not keeping your property up or paying your rent in time. So I would just say, if you were to do it, if you're mindful of, affordable housing is sort of getting squeezed, and if you can be the investor that can assist with that and keep it affordable, instead of thinking you need to flip or gentrify, your reception by the people in this country is going to be a lot easier than the opposite. 2, you need to make your budget for coming here to see it. And 3, just like with my clients who invest out of state, you really need to make sure that you're comfortable and you have multiple options for property management. I like for you to have at least 4 different good property management companies you can rely on. So if one does not work out, you can cancel and go to another one. But if you go to a place in a town and you see cheap property, but you don't make sure your infrastructure is in place, well, what can happen is that you run through a couple property managers who are not that good, then you don't have any more, and then you're overseas. Guess what? It's just not going to work out. That's going to be a hot mess. Avoid it now, and just by making sure. So I would say if you wanted to do it, yes, you just have to be conscious, mindful, make sure there's enough representation, so if you don't like the people you're working with, you can easily switch over. mindful of affordable housing issues and don't always come with a gentrification trying to flip mentality, because people can tell, and it's not a welcoming audience, and you really don't want to be on the opposite end of that. Yeah, and those would be the budget for travel. So I don't know, maybe make it Las Vegas and visit Vegas for 3 weeks every year as you check your investment. So I mean, I'm doing this, but you can, like really. Might take you quite a bit of time to go and see what you need to do. So at least deduct part of the trip. So that is what I would say to the people who found this book on the international bestsellers list on Amazon and who've been sending me emails. It is possible. If you come to me, I don't mind helping with that if you have the right energy. Just understanding like what is going on, the dynamic. I do want to help people who have more of a bigger understanding that it's not just about cash and money. It's also about long-term wealth, long-term gains, but also doing right by the people and the properties. I do have that pretty strong. I don't want to work with people who isn't. So if you do that, I will say it does come back to bite you in the butt. So be careful about that. So that's it. I just wanted to jump on. Oh, one more thing. So also, Chad Carson, he actually came on my videos. He had this really cool thing. He came up with seller financing. So if you want to go back to my videos and look up seller financing with Chad Carson, he was just talking about how he's a broke student, but he wanted to invest, so he created his own way. Me and him have similar gifts of being able to just really create what we want out of something when our back is against the walls. He did a great article today, and I wanted to talk about on Class A, B, and C neighborhoods. Now, Class A, B, and C is always a little subjective. Class A's are always easy to say, but it's when you get to C, D, and F in which there is wiggle room of what whom defines as what. If you say the word war zone to me, I used to use that term, but now I don't because it's just so silly. So if you use the word war zone to me, I know you probably have no business being in these neighborhoods, right? Because there's not too many war zones. Me and my clients have really been in a lot of different neighborhoods. There's some that are a little dicier than others, but, take it or leave it. So that's just one thing I wanted to say. But he had an interesting premise, and honestly, it's one of the most thoughtful pieces I've had outside of our group talking about it. What's an ABC neighborhood? So he has 2 categories I thought was interesting. I just read the article today. It was, you can have Class A, B, C, D neighborhoods, but you can also have Class A, B, C, D houses. So he's talking about, like, my best are Class C houses and Class C neighborhoods. Or you can have a Class C house and a Class B neighborhood, which is great because it's in a B neighborhood, which makes the clientele better. You just need to fix it up. And it was just one of the more thoughtful conversations. I was just on Bigger Pockets the other day, and someone was like, a D neighborhood, oh my gosh, what a headache, this and that. And I don't know what happened or what his experience was, but he has no business being in it if it was that bad, right? And so I just don't, when I see that, I don't see any thoughtfulness, discernment. I don't see any mindfulness. I don't see any level of being able to differentiate things, which is why a lot of people haven't been successful, but my clients are, because I teach them how to be discerning and differentiate the different items. But his is really good. So I just wanted to tell you guys that the article is out there. I like the fact that he made distinctions. And when we get to C and D, we're actually sort of, I don't disagree with it. Not quite sure if I'm completely on board with his classification, but at the end of the day, it's not really set in stone. So, and my notes was just that. I just thought this was really thoughtful. I will link to that in the bottom if you want to check it out and leave comments. He has a new book. I think it's called Retire Early with Real Estate Investments. I think he has about 10 properties, and he does some other things that he retired early, and it's semi-retired, right? So it's not all the way, but he's just self-employed and can do what he wants, which is a business teaching other people. I'm in chapter 4. He highlighted different investors who are making waves in the industry or changing things, or industry leaders in some ways, or just average people who can inspire you. And I appreciate that. But he really is just a smart guy, and I always appreciate reading his articles. So I would check it out if I were you, and leave a comment about over there too. Just checking the comments out and responding to them. So that's it for today. I just wanted to talk about my overseas investors, and you can do it, but just be cautious in the lower income areas about what's going on, the trends, understands what your place is in it and how you're going to contribute to society in that way, as well as profit, doing it overseas or doing it over here, whichever way, you can do it, but make sure you bring the right energy to it so that the people there don't have to, so they'll treat you the same way that you treat them. And energy matters because you just bring a whole different vibe, mindset, and what you do for people depending on how you view them. Is it just a cash cow or people who deserve a great place to live? Because it's a completely different mindset, energy you bring, and what you're going to do if you think one versus the other, what kind of upgrades you're going to get, what kind of carpets you're going to put in place. And so my clients have been always blessed, but they bring blessings, right? So there is more than to just making money. The people who are the most successful in this do have an energy of trying to help those. Business isn't alone. Business isn't just some silo. If you are a bad leader or a bad boss or a bad business owner, it will cycle back and you won't have as good of a time. It just will catch up with you because people can feel that. So that's what I want to say. And check out the article in Class A, B, C neighborhoods. And with that, if you guys haven't already, you can pick up Investing in Rental Properties for Beginners book. You can pick it up on Amazon for $4.99 for Kindle, $15 for the paperback. You can also go to my website, affordablerealestateinvestments.com, and get a free copy of the paperback. You just pay shipping. You also get a 30-day trial to my Investing Made Easy monthly membership, which if you try it, you will like it. It's really good stuff in there. So with that, I'm going to get off, and I'm going to put the links below if you'd like to find out. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope this was helpful in putting some things in perspective on what sometimes more than money and strategy can bring you success. And sometimes it's just being mindful and thinking about a bigger picture than yourself and your pocketbook can make everyone's pocketbook look better. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And to my UK people or people who want to invest there or invest where they are or invest here, you don't always have to raise rents. Yeah, you want to cover your costs, but if you have great people who are loving your place, treating it well, and it's time and you can raise the rent by $200, you don't always have to do it. And when you don't always do that, you're really putting yourself in a position to get long-term tenants and not have to worry about the turnover costs every year because people will eventually move out if you do keep raising it. And I love my 6-year tenants who pay on time, take care of my house. It's flawless. They don't mess it up. And I just don't have to worry about it. I have like a long-term business in my clients, and it's not gonna, as long as I do my job, they're going to do theirs. There's something to be said for that stability, especially if you're overseas, all right? Especially because you don't have the bandwidth to be coming over here. You're 6, 7, 8 hours ahead. You just can't do it. I don't care if you're in Cambodia, Singapore, Ireland, UK, whoever sent me emails or have been reaching out to me. You got to keep that in mind that the long-term gain is feasible and that, you have to be mindful of the total circumstances of what facilitates that and creates that environment. So with that, I'm signing off. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen. I hope it was worth your while. You can catch the book, Investing in Rental Properties for Beginners. Yes, the same concepts that I said to my UK people, they would apply to you. Yeah, so I would absolutely get it if you're going to start making that effort because it is so expensive where you live to do it. Some places worse than others. And I'll put links below. Bye.